Far beneath the azure waves of the coralline sea lay the kingdom of Coralithia, a place where the ocean shimmered with life. The coral reefs sparkled like jewels, and schools of fish painted the water in brilliant colors. Amid this vibrant world lived Lyra, a young mermaid with a heart full of dreams. Lyra was unlike the other mermaids. While her peers were content tending to the seaweed farms or learning ancient songs, Lyra spent her days imagining a life beyond the ocean depths. She adored human fashion, a fascination sparked when she stumbled upon a sunken trunk filled with magazines and fabrics from the world above. She would drape herself in the shimmering silks, turning the seafloor into her private runway. "Oh, Pearl," Lyra sighed one morning as she held up a mirror-like shell, admiring her reflection. "One day, I'll be up there, strutting across a runway for all the world to see." Pearl, Lyra's best friend, a sea turtle with a shell speckled like a starry night, chuckled. "And what would the fish think of that? They'd be your audience, no doubt." Lyra laughed, her voice as light as a bubbling spring. "If only the elders understood. They think my dream is silly, but I believe it's possible." Yet, deep down, Lyra knew the weight of her people's expectations. In Coralithia, tradition was everything. Mermaids were taught to revere the ancient ways, to care for the great coral spine, a massive reef said to hold the kingdom's life force. Lyra's family often reminded her of her duty to preserve the ocean's harmony. But Lyra couldn't help herself. Her heart yearned for something more. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the ocean in hues of gold and purple, Lyra swam to her favorite spot near the great coral spine. The massive reef glowed faintly in the twilight, its once brilliant colors dimmed with age. She reached out, brushing her fingers over the brittle coral. "What's happening to you?" she whispered. As if in answer, a soft voice broke the silence. "Lyra." Startled, she turned to see Riven, the kingdom's oldest seahorse, hovering nearby. His silver mane shimmered like moonlight, and his eyes, though ancient, sparkled with wisdom. "Riven, you frightened me," Lyra said, clutching her chest. "My apologies, dear one," he said, his voice deep and calming. "But I've come with a message. The great coral spine is fading, and the kingdom is in peril. You have been chosen to lead us in restoring its glory." Lyra blinked, stunned. "Me? But I'm just me. I don't know anything about saving reefs." "You have a light within you," Riven replied. "A dreamer's soul. And it is dreamers who bring change to the world." Lyra swam in circles around the fading coral, her thoughts spinning just as wildly. "Riven, you must be mistaken. I'm not a leader, I don't know the first thing about saving a reef, let alone a kingdom." The seahorse smiled patiently. "Leaders aren't born knowing everything, Lyra. They're simply brave enough to try. Your dreams have always been about beauty and creativity. Perhaps those are exactly the tools we need to inspire change." Lyra hesitated, the weight of the revelation pressing on her like a deep current. "What if I fail?" "Then you'll learn," Riven said gently. "But if you don't try, the reef will surely die, and with it, much of Coralithia's magic. The elders believe in you. I believe in you." The words lingered with her as she swam home that evening. She spent the night staring out at the moonlit waters, wondering how her dream of becoming a model could ever align with saving her kingdom. Over the next few weeks, Lyra worked tirelessly to bring her plan to life. She designed an event she called the Festival of Renewal, a grand celebration that would combine fashion, art, and action to inspire the citizens of Coralithia to save the reef. She spent hours crafting underwater gowns and accessories using only sustainable materials, pearls from abandoned shells, seaweed woven into intricate patterns, and glowing bioluminescent algae to light up the garments. Each outfit told a story. One dress depicted the fragility of coral, another celebrated the resilience of ocean life. Lyra enlisted her fellow mermaids and mermen to model the creations, turning them into ambassadors for her cause. Pearl helped spread the word, and even Riven offered his wisdom to guide her. The day of the festival arrived, and merfolk from all corners of Coralithia gathered near the great coral spine. The once dim reef was now the backdrop for an underwater runway that glowed with luminescent lights. Schools of fish danced above the crowd, and seahorses lined the edges, their manes shimmering like the stars. Lyra swam to the center of the gathering, her own gown flowing like liquid silver. She took a deep breath and addressed the crowd. "Friends, today we celebrate not just the beauty of our world, but the responsibility we have to protect it. The great coral spine has given us life, and now it is our turn to give back. Together, we can heal the reef and ensure Coralithia thrives for generations to come." As the models swam gracefully down the runway, showcasing Lyra's creations, murmurs of awe and agreement filled the water. The festival wasn't just a spectacle, it was a call to action. The days that followed were a whirlwind of doubt and hope. Word of Lyra's choosing spread through Coralithia, and the reactions were mixed. "Lyra, the dreamer," scoffed one elder. "She's creative, but is that enough?" another murmured. Others were more supportive. "She's young and full of ideas. Maybe that's what we need." Even Lyra's family was uncertain. "This is a great honor, Lyra," her mother said, smoothing Lyra's golden hair. "But are you sure you're ready? The kingdom's future is a heavy responsibility." Lyra felt the weight of everyone's expectations and doubts pressing down on her. She confided in Pearl one evening as they floated above a forest of sea kelp. "I don't think I can do this. I've always been the one who dreams of things that don't matter. What if they're right about me?" Pearl nudged her gently. "You've always dreamed big, Lyra. But maybe that's exactly what Coralithia needs right now, someone who isn't afraid to think differently. You've got a gift for seeing beauty and potential. Use it." Inspired by her friend's words, Lyra began to formulate a plan. If she was going to help save the reef, she'd do it her way, with creativity and vision. The Festival of Renewal was a triumph. The merfolk left the gathering filled with a renewed sense of purpose and admiration for Lyra's creativity. Many volunteered to help revive the great coral spine, working tirelessly under her guidance. For weeks, the citizens of Coralithia cleaned debris, planted coral fragments, and worked to rebuild their fragile home. Lyra joined them every day, her silver gown replaced by practical strands of woven seaweed that allowed her to move freely. Her hands were often rough from handling sharp coral, but her spirit remained bright. Even the elders, who had once doubted her, began to take notice. "Perhaps there's more to her than we thought," one admitted, watching Lyra coordinate a group of mermaids planting new coral. But just as hope began to take root, trouble brewed on the horizon. One evening, as Lyra swam back to her home, she noticed an eerie stillness in the water. The currents that usually carried warmth now felt cold and sharp. Above her, the distant surface churned darkly, the first signs of an undersea storm. She hurried to the council chambers, where the elders were already convening. "A storm is approaching," said Elder CARELESS, her voice heavy with worry. "A strong one. It could undo all the progress we've made." The room fell silent. Lyra's heart pounded as she stepped forward. "We can't let that happen. We've worked too hard to give up now. We have to protect the reef." Another elder frowned. "And how do you propose we do that? No mermaid has ever stopped a storm." Lyra took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We can't stop it, but we can shield the reef. We can use the discarded fishing nets we've collected to create barriers. The seagrass we've harvested can be tied to anchor the new coral fragments. If we work together, we can minimize the damage." The council murmured among themselves. Finally, Elder CARELESS nodded. "It's risky, but it's our best chance. Lyra, you will lead the effort." The storm arrived sooner than expected. As the first powerful waves reached the reef, Lyra and the merfolk sprang into action. They worked in teams, tying down fragile coral pieces and stretching nets to shield the most vulnerable areas. The water grew darker, and the currents became more violent. Fish scattered in panic, and debris from the ocean floor was flung into the reef like projectiles. Lyra's golden hair whipped around her as she shouted instructions to the teams. "Hold the nets steady. Don't let the currents tear them away." Pearl, swimming alongside her, helped secure a particularly large piece of coral. "Lyra, this current's getting stronger. We need more help." Lyra turned to see a group of younger mermaids struggling to anchor a section of the reef. Without hesitation, she swam to them, her heart pounding as the storm raged around her. "You're doing great," she encouraged them, her voice steady despite the chaos. Focus on tying the knots tightly. I'll help secure the base. Hours passed as the storm continued its assault. Lyra's muscles burned with exhaustion, but she refused to give up. Riven appeared beside her, his silver mane dimmed by the murky water. "You're doing well, Lyra," he said. "But the reef needs one final barrier to shield its core. It's risky, but it might save everything." Lyra nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. "What do I need to do?" With Riven's guidance, Lyra led a group of merfolk to the heart of the great coral spine, where the reef's oldest and most fragile coral resided. There, they used every resource available to create a massive protective dome. Lyra herself worked at the highest point, weaving nets and tying them securely despite the relentless currents. Just as they completed the barrier, a powerful wave slammed into it. The force sent Lyra tumbling backward, her body colliding with the coral. Pain shot through her, but she gritted her teeth and pushed forward. "Lyra," Pearl cried, swimming to her side. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lyra said, though her tail throbbed and her hands were scraped raw. "We're almost there. We just need to hold on a little longer." The merfolk rallied together, each one inspired by Lyra's determination. As the storm's fury began to subside, a golden light broke through the dark waters. The currents slowed, and the reef's protective barriers held strong. When the storm finally passed, the merfolk floated in silence, surveying the damage. Much of the reef had been spared, and the newly planted coral fragments remained intact. In the days that followed, the citizens of Corelethia worked tirelessly to repair the remaining damage. The great coral spine began to glow faintly, a sign that it was healing. The festival had sparked a movement, and the storm had cemented Lyra's place as a true leader. At a grand gathering to celebrate their success, Elder CARELESS addressed the crowd. "Lyra has shown us that dreams are not frivolous. They are the seeds of change. Because of her vision and courage, Corelethia has a future once more." The merfolk cheered, their voices echoing through the ocean. Lyra stood before them, her heart swelling with pride. As time passed, her story spread beyond the ocean. Human divers discovered the rejuvenated reef and were inspired by its beauty. They began crafting ocean-inspired fashion lines, unknowingly fulfilling Lyra's dream of influencing the surface world. Lyra, now a respected leader, realized she had found something even more meaningful than her original dream. She had discovered her purpose: to protect her home and inspire others to do the same. Floating above the vibrant reef one evening, Pearl nudged her playfully. "So, fashion queen, did you ever think your runway would be the ocean floor?" Lyra laughed, her golden hair shimmering in the twilight. "I never imagined it, but I wouldn't trade it for anything." And as the great coral spine pulsed with life beneath her, Lyra knew her story was only the beginning of Corelethia's new chapter.